Mr. Flashy has finally been sentenced after a gangland career that saw him implicated in violent feuds and firearms incidents. Glen Ward's conviction marks the culmination of a detailed investigation into his role in a New Year's Day firearms incident in 2022, where video evidence showed gang members firing a high-powered weapon in a residential area. On that night, Glen Ward and his associates were gathered at a house in Finglas, an address later identified as a stronghold of Ward's gang. Video footage recovered later showed Ward and his younger brother, Eric O'Driscoll, handling and discharging a firearm from the back door of a house. This grotesque act of bravado, as it was later described in court, was recorded on a mobile phone. Irish law tightly restricts firearms, especially military-grade weapons, and possession of such a rifle without lawful purpose carries a maximum penalty of 14 years in prison. Ward had no lawful reason to have this gun. It was held purely for gangland purposes. In fact, the Special Criminal Court would later infer that the whole episode was intended as an intimidation tactic. In February 2022, about a month after the New Year's incident, Garda detectives acted on information suggesting that firearms were being stored at a property linked to Mr. Flashy's gang. A search of a house in Finglas on the 10th of February 2022 led to a major weapons seizure. During this raid, officers discovered the AR-15 rifle and a military-grade 9mm submachine gun, along with a quantity of ammunition hidden in a shed and wrapped in black plastic. At the time of the February raid, no one was immediately charged. However, Garda had strong suspicions that Glen Ward and his inner circle were connected to the arms cache. Surveillance operations and ongoing intelligence gathering continued. However, it was an unrelated event a few months later that yielded the most incriminating evidence. On the 21st of June 2022, Ward and his brother survived an attempted hit when their taxi was ambushed on Tulka Valley Road in broad daylight. In the aftermath, investigators searching the bullet-riddled taxi found a bank card bearing Eric O'Driscoll's name and a mobile phone that had apparently been dropped or left behind during the chaos. The phone was seized for analysis. This turned out to be a critical piece of evidence. Digital forensics linked the phone to O'Driscoll and uncovered the video clips of the January 1st firearm display. One video clip showed Eric O'Driscoll accepting the AR-15 from another male and firing it from the rear of a Finglas house. Another clip showed the two seized firearms laid out on a table, confirming that the weapons recovered in February were the same ones brandished by the gang in the video. These videos effectively placed both Eric O'Driscoll and Glen Ward at the scene of an illegal firearms discharge. With the physical guns in custody and video evidence linking them to the suspects, the guards moved to tighten the net around Ward and his accomplices. On the 12th of January 2024, after over a year of building the case, Garda arrested Glen and Eric and charged them with multiple firearms offences related to the events of January and February 2022. They were brought before a Dublin district court for an initial hearing. Both men were remanded in custody from that point forward. The district court, on hearing the seriousness of the allegations, denied any bail. In June 2024, the decision was made to send the brothers for trial at the Special Criminal Court. A High Court judge ruled that the case would bypass a jury, a common procedure for gangland cases. On 21 March 2025, Glen Ward appeared at the three-judge Special Criminal Court in Dublin and formally pleaded guilty to one count of unlawful possession of a firearm. Given the guilty pleas, the Special Criminal Court moved to the sentencing phase. The hearing provided a detailed look at the facts of the case and the background of the accused. The senior counsel representing Glen Ward acknowledged the seriousness of the offence, but urged the court to consider Ward's personal circumstances and behaviour since his arrest. The defence characterised his client's actions on that night as nothing more than a grotesque act of bravado. By labelling it as bravado, the defence implied that Ward's motive was showing off rather than an intent to cause actual physical harm. The defence also pointed out that Ward had no history of drug addiction or substance abuse and had maintained legitimate employment as a mechanic in the past. He presented Glen Ward as someone who, while deeply involved in crime, was not beyond rehabilitation. The defence also highlighted Ward's conduct during his time in custody. Since being remanded in January 2024, Ward had participated in educational and vocational programs in prison, completing a barbering course and attending art classes. These efforts were cited as evidence of his willingness to reform. Additionally, the defence drew attention to the harsh conditions Ward endured behind bars due to the threat against his life. For 7 months, Glen Ward was held on 23.5-hour lockdown for his own protection. This regime, while necessary to keep him safe from rival gang inmates, took a toll on his mental health. For Eric O'Driscoll, his defence counsel emphasised his youth at the time of the offence. He was only 20 or 21 during the AR-15 incident. The court was told O'Driscoll had no significant prior convictions and that he had fallen under negative influences, implying that his involvement was partly due to following his older brother's footsteps. A probation report indicated that Eric was extremely forthcoming and candid about his wrongdoing and expressed genuine remorse and willingness to rehabilitate. After hearing all sides, the Special Criminal Court judges categorized the crime as falling in the higher end of the mid-range of firearms offences, not the absolute worst case, since it did not involve shooting a person or using the gun in a robbery, for instance, but certainly a major offence given the type of weapon and context. On the 28th of April, 2025, the Special Criminal Court delivered its sentences for Glen Ward. Mr. Flashy was given 5.5 years in prison for the firearms offence. His brother, Eric O'Driscoll, received a somewhat similar sentence of 6 years, with the final 12 months suspended.